Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to check out another Rebor figure, and this is actually another one of the X-Rex figures. As you can see by the title right there, now we have the Swarm variant of the figure, having a little bit of a different look than the previous one did that we have already reviewed. This figure's actually been out for a little while now. I'm a little slow to get a hold of it, but since I did just officially get a hold of this one, I figured why not review it for you guys. So, again, as far as the box art goes, we have your standard Rebor box art with a really nice image of the figure right there on the front. And then when we turn the box around, we have kind of like a checklist of the other figures that either are in the line or will be in the line very soon. We have previously reviewed this one. We are now taking a look at this one, and then these two have yet to release. This is probably my favorite, I think, of all four. It's just the coloration of that one is really, really cool looking, but this one here, I think, potentially could be my second favorite, so that's the one we are reviewing today, and I'm really excited to take a look at it, so let's go ahead and get it out of this box right now. So after briefly putting it together, here is our Swarm variant of the X-Rex, and it looks super, super cool. Again, this one is quite clearly based off of the Alien series, kind of mixing an alien and the Tyrannosaurus Rex, obviously, hence the name X-Rex. And I stated in my last review of the previous X-Rex figure that I'm not a gigantic fan of the Alien films. I do definitely like them. I've seen them, definitely enjoyed each and every one of them, and will watch them again at some point in the future. However, I'm not like an over-the-top crazed fan of the Alien films like some other people will be, so this is just kind of like something that I thought was really cool, really unique, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted it. Plus, I like horror movies, so anything to do with horror movies I'm kind of a fan of. But as far as like alien terminology and all that stuff, I'm not as up-to-date as most probably would be if you're a bigger fan of the Alien franchise. But what I do see here is a really cool mix between an alien and a Tyrannosaurus Rex, so let's go ahead and get a closer look at this very unique figure right now. So as far as this figure goes, we have technically, in a way, reviewed this figure previously because we've reviewed the sculpt of the body. The body, as far as what I can see here, appears to be exactly the same as the previous release, of course, with a new paint job. It's the head that is different on this one compared to the previous releases of the Alien figures. So kind of taking a look here at the head sculpt, as we don't need to thoroughly go over every aspect of the body as we have already done it before, but we will, of course, take a look at it. But you can see that the head sculpt has an incredibly cool look. Again, certain aspects of the head sculpt are definitely still similar to the previous releases. Generally, the mouth and everything looks very much so the same. You can see a really cool kind of like stretching effect of the skin and everything here in the face of the X-Rex. And the teeth look extremely, extremely cool. Like, there's not much more of like something that screams alien than this image right here. That's very, very alien-like. But the teeth have like a light gray or like a light silver kind of dry brushed over top. And that makes those teeth look a little bit better, look a little more realistic, and just generally a little bit different from the rest of the body as it differs slightly than the coloration elsewhere. But you can see how incredibly detailed in general the head sculpt is. Like, there is just so much detail, not just in the head sculpt, but in the entire figure. It is just off the charts as far as the detailing aspect of the figure goes. Probably one of, if not the most highly detailed Rebor figures that you'll probably ever see. There's just a ton of sculpt and detail throughout the entire body of this figure. But then up here on the top of the head, I really like this. You can kind of see inside there. It's not super, super visible, but there's like this kind of a clear plastic so that you can see through it, and it has that very alien-like look how the aliens looked in the film, and that's one of the reasons why I think I like this one a little better than the previous one. That and also the coloration. I really, really like the colors on this one. Very, very alien-like as far as the coloration goes. But again, it's really cool how you can kind of see through that. It looks really, really neat here in person. And I think Rebor has done, and I get a little bit too uncomfortably close there, but Rebor has done an incredible job on this. And the overall head and the way that this is kind of see-through and everything is just absolutely awesome in that aspect of the figure. Again, very striking overall. And you also have the tongue. You'll notice that it's not in his mouth because I have a hard time kind of getting them into the mouth and having them stay there. But you can see that the tongue as well is incredibly well sculpted. Even the teeth here on the tongue is also really, really well done. Very highly detailed in its own aspect. And there's like a little peg right here. You have to put it inside the mouth if we can get in there and then push it down. But because you can't get in there very well, I have a hard time kind of getting that in and actually keeping it in there, so it looks incredibly cool once it is in fact in, which it's not, it's still just laying in there. But I just have a hard time getting it into that spot in the mouth. But again, moving down into the body, we are not really going to thoroughly review the body, but we will take a look, of course, over it. And you can see as far as the coloration goes, the majority of it is like this blackish coloration with a really cool kind of a green coloration kind of mixing within. It looks like maybe they've given it like this very nice greenish color and then applied a nice dark wash to make all the detail pop, and again look very, very alien-like and just generally extremely realistic looking, I think, as far as the paint goes. Well, maybe I shouldn't say realistic, but lifelike, I should say. And you can also see that up here on the back there's a really nice brownish coloration that's been added in certain areas, and that brown kind of runs the course of the spinal column of the animal, and you can see that here from up above. It does run the entire course of the figure. And you can also see some of that brown has been added up here to this area. You can see it kind of ever so slightly showing up in certain spots here. If we can get it to focus, there you go. Now you can see it a little better, and how that brown is included up there, as well as the green and the black. So that area specifically just has a lot of color variation to it. And you can also see some more of the brown kind of creeping through here in the side of the stomach region as well. The arms are painted pretty much like the rest of the body is, as far as that green and black mixture. Again, this one, I feel like the actual paint application is much nicer than the previous one, which the previous one was really good, but I just like the colors of this one a lot more. You can see, again, that brown creeping through, and it's very realistically applied. Like, it's super lifelike the way that they've applied this. It generally almost looks like a living, breathing creature here before me. Coming down into the foot, you can see the nails are painted with a nice silver coloration, similar to what we saw in the teeth. And I think they look really cool and play off of the rest of the body really well, and you can really get a good idea of the coloration, how I was saying, with that green and black mixture here in the foot and leg area. It really just shines through quite beautifully there. And again, as I'm moving the figure through, if you happen to have missed the previous review of the other X-Rex version that I have reviewed, you'll probably be quite amazed as far as the actual sculpt and detail on the figure. Again, when I state that it is one of the most highly detailed figures from Rebor, that is definitely no exaggeration. It is incredible looking. And then we move out the length of the tail. Again, we have those nice mixtures of the green and the black, and then out here on the tip, you have that mixture of the brown and the black, similar to what we see up on the top. And the tail is posable, of course. You can bend it and everything like that to positions that you would like to display it in. And then the arms as well can articulate, because the arms are actually something that you have to apply yourself. So you slide the arms in, you slide those guys in, and you also slide the tail in, so they all come kind of disassembled, and you have to put it together once you actually get it. But again, looking over here at this side, the paintwork is very consistent, really nicely done in every aspect of the figure. It looks great on both sides as far as that paintwork goes. And again, definitely my favorite version so far of these X-Rex figures. Paint-wise, it is phenomenal. Sculpt-wise, it is phenomenal. Even the original one was also quite phenomenal as far as the paintwork goes. But having this new variant with, in my opinion, a much more appealing head sculpt and just general appearance to it, I'm really, really psyched about this one. These X-Rex figures are so incredibly cool, and I think that you don't necessarily need to be a fan of the Aliens films. I mean, I'm a fan of them, just not a huge fan, so this is kind of something that, like, for the price range and everything, some people might look at it as something that only the diehard fans of Aliens would probably want to buy or appreciate. Honestly, you don't even need to be a fan of Aliens at all. It's just such a unique and interesting collectible, and especially if you're just a fan of dinosaurs and want something different, I really recommend picking one of these up, because they're incredibly striking and really, really interesting looking in person. Definitely a very cool collectible that each one of these I have welcomed with open arms into my collection, and definitely something that I feel like, being so unique, there's no way anybody would regret a purchase of one of these very cool X-Rex figures. But as far as a size goes on our X-Rex, actually, we'll go from the tail to the head. We normally go from the head to the tail, but we'll do it a little differently this time. So for a length on our X-Rex, they are really quite large. For a length, you're looking at about 17 inches or about 43.5 centimeters. So lengthwise, there is a lot to it. Height-wise, I think maybe these guys here in the back would probably be around the highest point, so about 6¼ inches, maybe a little hair over, or about 16 centimeters. And then to the top of the head, it's actually roughly about the same size there as well. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Rebor X-Rex, the Swarm variant. And you can see next to these figures, again, exactly what I was saying, as it's a very large figure, especially in length. You can see that that tail continues to go on and on quite far back in comparison to some of these other figures, really outshining each of these figures in the size department. That is just yet another very cool aspect of these X-Rex figures. So as far as this Rebor X-Rex, the Swarm variant goes, it is definitely my favorite so far of these alien-inspired dinosaur figures. We've previously reviewed the Broodlord figure, and now this is the alternate variant as far as the sculpts go, which is the Swarm variant. So now there are two different as far as like the style of sculpts go, and now I happen to own both. And then there are going to be 2 future releases of alternate paint schemes of both of these figures. So I am happy now to have at least one of each of the different sculpts of these X-Rex figures in my collection. And even though the body is the same, it does have an alternate head. And I think if only I had my other one out and it wasn't in storage, I would love to have it displayed next to this. And I am working on hopefully having my collection up for display at some point in the not too far distant future, or at least the majority of my collection. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity at some point soon to get the other one out of storage, display them together, and I think they'll look really cool next to each other. But again, the body of this one being the same as the previous one, having an alternate head, I think will make the two look very cool next to each other when they are displayed with each other. But as far as the figure goes in general, again, like I had stated in the previous X-Rex figure review, this is probably the most highly detailed Rebor figure that there is. And that's just because there's so much as far as detail-wise that they were able to include in it, like tearing and ripping skin and just like the underneath of the body and everything. And like there's just so many different areas that they had pretty much unlimited potential to include detail with, and Rebor took advantage of that, and you can really see that in the sculpt of this figure. Again, as far as their sculpts go, this is probably the most impressive sculpt that Rebor has released to date, in my opinion, and that's not just because it's an alien figure or anything like that. It's just because of the sheer amount of detail that they had the ability to include, and they again took advantage of that and really crammed an absolute plethora of detail into the figure, and you can really see how beautiful it is and how much that time and effort paid off in the long run with the overall presentation of the final product. It is incredible looking here before us. The sculpt is just magnificent detail-wise, but the paint on this newest version as well is really cool, and I love the way they've painted it with this very nice greenish coloration and then that kind of dark wash, or maybe it was just a black and then they kind of dry brushed the green over. I'm not too sure exactly how they did it, but it looks amazing the way they've painted the figure. And then you also have the inclusion of like certain areas of like that brown, and it's really cool in certain ways how they've applied it, like certain spots of the underside of the animal, well, I guess alien, kind of creeping through, and that brown shows in areas where like the skin is like stretching and everything. It just looks super, super neat the way they've painted this figure. And again, as far as I'm concerned, these tones of color used on this one are quite a bit more appealing than the previous one, which the previous one looked cool too, but this one paint-wise I think is a lot more impressive and a lot more appealing looking. And I love the new head sculpt. I love the way it's kind of see-through and you can see inside there and kind of see some detail underneath that see-through area. It's just really, really neat. And overall, again, the sculpt and detail, paint, everything on this figure is absolutely gorgeous and definitely my new favorite version of these X-Rex figures. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do just that on everythingdinosaur.com. So make sure you check the description, go buy this fantastic Rebor X-Rex Swarm variant, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.